For this session, we are privileged to have Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, decorated with Param Vishishta Seva Medal, Ati Vishishta Seva Medal, Nausena Medal, Aided Camp. Vice Admiral Sinha joined Indian Navy in 1974 in the Executive Branch of Indian Navy. He served as Flag Officer, Naval Aviator, Assistant Chief of Naval Staff, Controller Personal Services. He served as a 6th Chief of Defense Staff. In 2012, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha was appointed as a Flag Officer, Commander-in-Chief of Western Naval Command. After 4 decades of service, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha was retired from Indian Navy in 2014. Now, I request our chairman to please introduce our speaker and start with our session.
Well, thank you very much, Sneha, for that introduction. Firstly, I'm grateful to the organizers to have invited me to chair this session. Mr. Anthony Prince does not require any introduction really, because he is a man who's famous all over the world, and therefore whatever has been given in his biodata, I feel that more than that it will take me much longer than the time given for the speaker. But before I invite him to talk, shipbuilding, if you go to the document that Commodore Oracle mentioned about, and you see the chapter 5, it really lays down the future of shipbuilding industry and which direction we should be heading. There is also there are markets of nearly $12 billion in the shipbreaking, in the ancillary industry, and we aren't too far behind. Though we don't make very classy ships, very complex ships, but on the lower end of the shipbuilding, we come into, as far as tonnage is concerned, in the top 10 of the world. But that is not enough. That is not enough because India's stature is much bigger. We are going to be shortly, within few years, the second largest economy in the world, and I think that it augurs only well that we are also a big shipbuilder. In fact, it is such a money spinner. It is surprising that we haven't progressed the manner in which we should have progressed. So there are challenges. It's not that there are no challenges, but the government is, as somebody said, the government has taken its attention onto the maritime sector, and they have given policies of financial assistance policy on shipbuilding, which came out in 2016 by the present government, a grant of infrastructure status to shipbuilding industry, which means a lot, because you can see the subsequent policies which are associated with infrastructure that will all go into being. Then, of course, Atmanirbhar policy, it is revised in 2020, and this is another document which is worth reading. We have standard operating procedure for chartering, procurement of tugs, and Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. So all in all, I would think that with the battery of people who have the knowledge as far as the government is concerned, they have come out with this 4-5. But my suggestion will be that the organizers here, they should take out the important points and what is not happening and what should happen, those as a compendium, and then became forwarded to the shipping ministry from the organizers. So without wasting any time, let me invite Mr. Anthony Prince. The floor is yours, sir. Go ahead and give your talk.
Thank you very much, sir. I would like to, first of all, thank you for your kind words. I don't know whether I deserve all of that one, but I'll take it. Thank you very much, sir. I would like to thank Captain Naravane, who actually discussed with me at length regarding the theme of this webinar, and kindly agreeing to me to add ship design as part of the topic of this webinar. I am actually in this field for last 50 years, having had the privilege of living and working in Japan, Korea, China, in Canada, and finally in the Bahamas. And I'm very fortunate that the company I worked I work now and own is started in Japan in 1950 and was part of the Japanese shipbuilding story. Likewise, I started in China in 1993 in modernizing Chinese shipbuilding. In 2003, I got an opportunity to come to the country and start the shipbuilding here in India. And I'm sure that most of you are involved with shipbuilding, know the story. So I thought that as Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, the chairman of the session, pointed out, let us find out why it is not working, what we have to do to reach our ambitions and aspirations and goals. In last 18 years in the country, I've noticed that we don't lack vision and we don't lack policies. But when it comes to implementation, that is where we grossly fail. I'll start with my presentation, so I'll cover that through that one. So I hope all of you can see the slide. Is it visible and audible? Okay.
Yes, sir. Audible.
Thank you. Now we are all talking about indigenization, self-reliance, and reaching a goal by 2030. So let's see how it goes. So if you look at the shipbuilding capacity in India and globally, you can very well see that we have a meager 30,000 gross ton capacity in shipbuilding when compared to the world tonnage, where the major countries like Japan, Korea, and China control most of the shipbuilding tonnage. So we have a long way to go. So this is how it looks. In the Maritime Agenda 2020 that came up in 2011, we had an ambitious plan of reaching 5% of the global shipbuilding share. At that point of time, our share was 1% or about that one. And you can see when we came to 2020, we actually have less than 1%. So somewhere something went wrong. We had a very good vision, we had a very good ambition, but we never reached it. So obviously there is something that is missing. So when you come to Maritime Vision 2030, which came up in 2020, our capacity is 30,000 gross ton, and our ambition is 500,000 gross ton, something like 20 times what is today's capacity. And just by making a vision statement or a policy, we are not going to reach it. And we have to work out and see what it's required to reach that goal. So when it comes without ship orders, we will not be able to reach that capacity, not only domestic, but also export orders. And most of the countries today in Korea or Japan or China is not running based on their domestic ship orders, but most of it is export orders. So like those countries, we will also have to rely on export orders. We do have certain advantage when it comes to labor, but rest everything, we are more expensive because we do not have a well-developed ancillary industry and steel making for ships availability. And also we have several taxes in the country that actually is also a big contributor of the price difference. Then one may say that there is lack of productivity, but I would not probably not agree with it because we have achieved some of the highest productivity in India some years back. So that's a picture. So we have something to catch up, and government has been very generous in allowing 30% of the ship's cost as subsidy, and to offset the handicaps that Indian shipbuilders have. But unfortunately, that has not helped because there is something else major that is missing. And with my personal experience of placing 16 orders in India in 2003, the first one was grand success, second was just managed to deliver, and the third one had to be cancelled after 5 years. So there's something missing. And in my own personal observation, I found the reasons. Now, this one major aspect after I completed my program in Cochin Shipyard was that we lack ship design capability, especially when it comes to merchant ships. So recognizing that factor, in 2007, I created a ship design capability in India. And within 5 years, it was recognized globally, and we exported designs, full designs, to other countries. However, just one person doing that effort is not sufficient for the demand of the entire shipbuilding industry in India. Therefore, gathering my friends in the ship design, we formed an association called Indian Marine Designers Association, and have been talking to the Ministry of Shipping as to what we need to do in order to develop the design capability. If you look at the history of Japan or Korea or China or Europe, everything is based on ship design. Ship design is the foundation on which ship is built. And the profits are made on the drawing boards and not on building boards. So perfecting the design and applying that design into shipbuilding, you can see that you can achieve the productivity, you can reach the goals. Classic examples are Cochin Shipyard and L&T, which has applied this principle and have delivered ships ahead of schedule. So people have not understood the value of design. And that is why I wanted to emphasize in this session, design is the most important factor in shipbuilding. Shipbuilding is on an execution of a mission, and that mission is already described, and how it is to be done, what it is to be done at the design stage. So we need to develop very good design capability, for which we need a very good academia industry interaction, so that we bring out from the educational institutions and technical institutions people who are employable. That means they are trained even before they graduate in the subjects that the shipyards require. And in my own personal judgment, in 2003, when I entered with 16 ship orders in India, we got more than 100 ship orders, and maybe 90% of that was not delivered. And one of the main reasons is not lack of money or lack of funds or value of the contract, but simply we did not have experienced manpower to execute those projects. So today, when we talk about Atmanirbhar and when we talk about reaching 500,000 gross tons by 2030, we really have to fill this huge gap of manpower. That is one of the major drawbacks that we have. When China wanted to go big, what they did was that they declared that all coastal ships more than 30 years have to be scrapped and replaced. And suddenly, all over the coast of China, sand beach shipyards came up. And those sand beach shipyards were building replacement coastal vessels and barges and things like that. Pre-approved designs were available for any shipyard to pick up and build these barges. And farmers and other type of workers came in and became shipbuilding workers. And slowly they started developing skill and they moved into small shipyards, from small shipyards to medium-sized shipyards, and from medium-sized shipyards to the big shipyards. Parallelly, the government educational and training institutions were turning out shipbuilding professionals, people who are required by the shipbuilding industry. Today, we have universities and colleges turning out naval architects and marine engineers. None of them are employable straight away into shipbuilding. They have to go through at least 1 or 2 years of training before they can have that kind of usability in a shipyard. But when you're sitting with 100 ship orders, you cannot just go out and have trainees to build those ships. So that is, I think, is one of the main reasons that we missed the boat in 2005 and 2006. And it will, same thing will happen. There will be no problem to get orders in India, but the biggest question for world shipbuilding community, can India deliver? Unfortunately, we damaged our reputation with non-delivery, and the shipyards like Bharati, ABG, Pipavav, they're all not functioning today, and they are the biggest stockholders of unused equipment today out of cancelled orders. And therefore, equipment makers around the world are very scared to come to India. We have a big job creating and getting back that confidence now for us to get any equipment to build ships. So the Maritime Vision 2030 has rightly identified the ship design and the requirements that are there in terms of design and in terms of research and development. And as the earlier speaker spoke about it, we definitely, and both speakers spoke about, we must have research and development based on industry needs and the future needs. So that has been very well identified. And of course, they have identified also the 2 clusters where we could have these institutions. And so with all these things in mind, we have formed the Indian Marine Designers Association, and about 6 or 7 major players are members. We are interacting to see how we will meet the country's needs, how we meet the country's needs. Now, there is also a perception, and I go back to the previous chair, this one, the understanding of ship design. The first thing is that we don't have the capacity, and therefore we have to take outside technology and outside help to design ships. And here, the visionaries of Maritime 2030 has made this assessment that when it comes to complex ships like container ships, oil tankage, LNG carriers, bulk carriers, and everything, you need to take 95% of the design, the basic design from outside, and only 5% can be contributed locally. And of course, they can only give 10% of the production design. This is totally wrong. I will, as I go down, I'll show it to you that the capacity is already existing in the country, but our misconception and love for things foreign, is taking us in a wrong path. And some of the people who are involved in putting up this Maritime Vision are foreign consultants, not any Indian consultant, of course, with the support of local partners and local players and everything. So, as a person who's exposed to grow in the global shipbuilding scene, I can share firsthand how all these things are done. It's not a second-hand news. When Japan wanted to have an LNG carrier, they designed by themselves with the knowledge they gained from repairing American-built, US-built LNG carriers. I was there. When Korea wanted to build an LNG carrier, their state gas company was asked to order gas ships, LNG carrier ships in Korea, And the technology was developed indigenously. Today, they are the biggest LNG carrier builder in the world. And when China wanted to develop their LNG carrier, I was there. And they told their companies to order LNG carriers only in China. And they asked all the foreign partners and everybody, you cuff up your technology, we are going to do that. But the design was an indigenous design. So same thing when it happened, India was going after Korea and Japan to give technology, and they never gave the technology. And I offered that I can give you the technology. It's not rocket science, And the thing is that we have to take off that perception that, we have to get foreign technology. No. And you can see that the people who are working in these technological companies and heading the companies are many a times Indians. They just got the right environment to work, and they are producing that technology. And if that environment is given in India, they will do it. I can tell you that I have a team of 100 engineers who are world-class ship designers. And while countries are spending a lot of time to design the ship of the future, we are also doing our part of designing a ship of the future. So it is possible. In fact, I have 2 orders straight away without the ship owner seeing even the design. So I want to change that perception among so many people that we lack knowledge, we lack ability, that we have to get everything from foreign countries. Now I'll show you that similarly they have described here in this Maritime Vision that we need to get so much of technology in the design field. Now, when I go to the slide where the Indian designers, what they have designed, you'll be very surprised. This is a fast patrol vessel for Indian Coast Guard. 20 of the ships' design were given to Cochin Shipyard, and from concept to production design, the 20 ships were delivered 11 months ahead of schedule. And design had a significant role in the delivery of the ship and completion of the ship. This is a design that was designed in India, including production design, and was built in China and exported. This is a LNG fuel ship that was designed in India in 2014 and got approval, and way ahead of anybody else in the world. And likewise, these are all original new designs that you go and you can see a wide variety of ships are designed. So a design company may not have a track record of a particular type of ship, but he has all the technological know-how, naval architecture, marine engineering, electrical engineering knowledge to design any ships. And if there are knowledge gaps, then of course we can get foreign partnership. That's all. But not a total design purchase, which doesn't help anybody. And you can also think that nobody is going to give their best design. They're going to give you their obsolete design. They don't want to create competition to themselves. So the only way is for us to develop indigenously, and Honorable Prime Minister has put it right way, Atmanirbhar. We have to practice that one, and we have to believe more and more in ourselves, and instead of going foreign, and start doing it ourselves. This is what I'm trying to promote. So when it comes to that design capability development, which is the most important aspect of Maritime Vision 2030, reaching 500,000 gross tons. Without that, you don't have to talk anything else. You can have infrastructure, you can have trained personnel, but nothing is going to happen. And we from the industry, we are ready for that one. The things that we are talking about is about 7 points that I'll read out. It's employable graduates and technicians based on a syllabus developed jointly by academia and industry. The entire system of education in engineering has to change. Personally, I'm working with my alma mater. We have already created departments of artificial intelligence and machine learning and robotics and everything, and trying to change the syllabus to more an industry suitable syllabus rather than pure academic. So we can apply that in the maritime industry, and Indian Maritime University can play a huge role in that aspect to understand the industry needs. No, there's the earlier speaker, Dr. Malini Krishnan, talked about lack of teachers. Yes, that is a very big thing. A chief engineer getting $10,000 who don't have a PhD, he cannot come and join a university because he has to have a doctorate, and then he can probably get less than $2,000 salary. So, because if you change that, the requirement of a PhD and the requirement of an age below 60, then you will have a lot of professionals in shipbuilding and ship operation and ship design and everything available to be appointed as honorary professors or even paid professors, whatever it is. So we need to change the rules, understanding the reality. So that's one important thing. And we in the industry are ready. For example, we use 20 different softwares. None of them, or maybe one or two of them, are taught in the university. The rest, entire training has to be done by us and at our cost, which becomes a big burden. And we had also interacted with the ministry with reference to the biggest burden that we have is ship design software. And we have requested them to provide it as a service so that we can use it when we require it only and pay a subsidized lease payment. This will greatly help for more and more design companies to come up, because the amount of design software that we have to buy and maintain is not sustainable. And again, financially support the apprenticeships so that we can all take these graduates and train them for the industry. But we need to support those candidates, and if the government can make it part of an apprenticeship program, that will help greatly. The government sponsor research and development projects. That is what will help us equip for the future. There are a lot of needs for future. For example, today it is digital ship design and digital shipbuilding. So we have to aim at that and reach there. Otherwise, we will be outpaced very soon. So all the conventional ship design and conventional shipbuilding is out of the way. So we need to be looking at it, and we must be developing that. And we cannot do it ourselves, and we need a research and development support. I understand that 25,000 crore seed money is given for the Maritime Vision 2030. So I'm sure there's plenty of money. So that's one thing. Then today, the designer is actually burdened to produce a complete bid design and give it to the shipyard. And if the shipyard doesn't win the L1, then all the investment made by the designer is gone out of the window. And we have discussed this with the ministry, and they agree that bid designs must be paid for. And these days, the requirement of bid designs is as good as a contract design. And we also must have a first right of refusal for Indian designers. And if there is any knowledge gap is there, of course, it can be made a condition. But then all the knowledge will pass through us to the country, and not that we are outright buying an outright design where no knowledge is transferred. So this is something. Already first right of refusal is given to Indian shipbuilders. And I, as the president of the association, this is what we are requesting that the government give, so that the indigenous design companies will develop and we will reach the self-reliance. And of course, no more purchases of foreign designs without a technology transfer. So this is what I would like to make the audience aware, the importance, very important aspect of reaching a shipbuilding vision or a goal. And the key points in Atmanirbhar in shipbuilding is something I will very briefly cover, because my colleague Hariraj will be presenting a paper tomorrow of an entirely new approach for India. Instead of just copying other countries, the appropriate plan from a professional view of from the professionals, shipbuilding and ship design professionals, as to what route the country should take to achieve Atmanirbhar in shipbuilding. So that will be presented tomorrow. So briefly here, develop ship design capability and capacity, develop shipbuilding manpower, including managers, create indigenous steel and equipment availability. Shipbuilding is a global business. Correctly identified pain points must be removed so that we do not have handicap. It has to be a level playing ground, and provide subsidies to shipbuilding industry, but not only to the shipyards, but also to the shipyards and equipment makers who are a big part. The material cost around 70%, and the labor and the integration is only 30%. So unless you have good equipment makers and at a competitive price, you cannot have a good shipbuilding program. So while the government is only giving subsidy to a shipyard, but they should also subsidize till it becomes a level playing ground. That's all. No handouts or no favors. But if a pain point is correctly recognized, till such time we can come up to the level, we need somebody to hold the umbrella. That's all what it is. So in the short time I'm given, I don't think I can share everything. I can and talk about everything in detail, but these are the key points. And with this, I'll conclude my presentation. And if there are any questions, I'll be very happy to take it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, may I please request our respected chairman to sum up the session?
Shall we take the questions first, Sneha?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, we can. Sorry.
If there are questions, kindly, will I be able to see raise hand in this? Yeah. Anybody who has question, please raise hand so that I can hand over the floor to him or her. Sneha, can you see any hand raised? I don't
No,
see
sir.
any.
No,
Okay.
sir. I can't see anyone. There is
Yeah.
no one.
Yeah. I think we are getting close to lunchtime, so it's really difficult for people to spend any time. But having said that, let me not cut short the summarization that I'm thinking about. I think firstly we must thank Mr. Anthony Prince for a very, very lucid and a very, shall I say, an exhaustive prescription as to how the shipbuilding and ship design in India should progress. And I couldn't agree more than to say that ship design is the key to shipbuilding in any future. However, the new technologies that he talked about in his 10 points, artificial intelligence and robotics, let us not forget that, these have to be used to build ships. So you require shipyards. And that needs to be kept in mind, that we must have adequate seafront where these big ships can be built. And for creating those infrastructure, I recommend that it should be a PPP model, because government alone will not be able to spend so much of money. And therefore, the private companies who are likely to be interested in the shipbuilding activity and subsequent business even outside India, including transportation, including repair, it has to be a little comprehensive policy. You cannot have just one out of this entire shipbuilding, because it will take a long time for any company to break even. And government support is required to give you subsidy in the infrastructure development, which have changed, because we have heard of this CAD, computer-aided design and computer-aided manufacturing. So if you have robotics and you have artificial intelligence, for God's sake, you've got to have your equipment and infrastructure in place so that they can listen to this fellow, to the robotics, to the robots, and the whole what is called the jigs and frames and what have you. They have to be positioned in a manner that the robotics, where will the robo operate from? Who will operate the robo? Will it be in autonomous mode? So you have to get into little detail, and therefore not imagine that we are going to make a futuristic ship and you don't have a futuristic shipyard. And this will require possibly maybe one additional point, Mr. Anthony, if you please, maybe you like to subsequent talks whenever you could add this. That is number one. The second point that I want to make is very important point he talked about is the qualified managers, manpower. Right in the beginning, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the India Maritime University, Dr. Malini Shankar, she made a very valid point that people come to do PhD just to write doctor ahead of their name, not really to learn, not really to discover things. And that is the problem. Outside the country, you will not believe that many university PhD are not recognized. And when the students land up there, you find that they are in absolutely grief. They don't know what to do. They're sent back because by the time they're selected for anything, any job or a higher sort of education, they go by what you produce. So if you show you're a PhD, they accept it. But the moment you land up there, you say which university? So and so university. So this we have to change. Our mindset has to change. We cannot remain a mediocre thinking country. Unfortunately, the policies of the government in the past have forced us to mediocrity of our intellectual capital, and that needs to be removed. And this is a big challenge. Mediocrity of intellectual capital. Why I say this is because if you don't invest much in the higher studies, getting new technology, then you will be quite happy to make provision in the universities for passing out people who can just earn their living. And these boys were large numbers. When people say that India's middle class is thriving, I get a little worried that this middle class is also giving rise to this middle class mediocrity of intellectual capital. And this is one very big challenge which all of us have to sort of look at it and how we can improve. And one of the suggestions which Mr. Anthony gave was to hire qualified people from outside till you have your own. So if you hire people and train the trainers, this is very important because these days you don't find top of the line people joining the teaching profession. So this is another problem. As I said, you're only creating people who are who got to earn their living. They will have a motorcycle, they will have a house and rent, they will have McDonald's and sort of KFC. They're happy. They are married. They have children who can be brought to school. Well, that is all right for economy, but that is not all right for intellectual capital. So see, this is one big problem that we are facing. And whenever the rules and regulations, UGC rules, etc., whenever they are tightened to make this work, there is too much of halla gulla in the whole country. So this only points that are that we have to get over this mediocrity by all means. It is not a done thing. Second, another point that I wanted to make, again, it made very well by Mr. Anthony, that the self-reliance and technology transfer. A lot of movement has taken place in the defense sector since I belong to the Navy and have been with the defense acquisition for many years. This is being tried for a long time. The government, in its own excitement, they gave out that following negative list, meaning that you can't import, hoping that by then the Atmanirbhar project will work and it will come out. But regrettably, it has not happened. And therefore, that list is being revised time and again. Only yesterday, I read that 2-3 items have been removed from that list. They have to be imported. They have to be imported because you can't keep waiting till cows come home. So it's certainly not security. So in security, if this is required, all security manufacturing has got a flip side. It has got a collateral advantage, if you like. What is made for defense. For example, we have an excellent ship design bureau. All PhDs from outside, and they are the ones who design all the warships.
Yes.
None of our warships are designed outside the country, and including now the submarine. Arihan, the nuclear submarine, is designed by us, our own designers, and it's selling well. Second one, third one are already on the block. They should be operational in time. The second one, I think maybe Commodore Dhankar may have a little more input on that. All I know is that by end of this coming year, the second one should be sailing, operational. So what I'm saying is that if there are people retiring from these jobs, I think the industry can do well to absorb them. Maybe Mr. Anthony can sort of keep a watch on such people, and if you want, we can all be helpful because they're already PhD. They already have the basic ship design in their mind. All you can do is to add a few things and see how they are doing, and I think they can be of great value to the shipbuilding industry. One very important point that you made, Mr. Anthony, I quite liked it, that the ecosystem has to be built. The medium and small manufacturing enterprises, if they are not there, then you will not be able to build the ship, any shipbuilding. First, you actually start doing a survey of the MSMEs, those who have component level knowledge. They will not have it because you're not building it. So you will have to give them some incentive, bring them on board and tell them that what components you want them to manufacture. And once that happens, I personal belief is that you should always start small. You can think big, start small, get the components first, and now you see in the meantime your technology has developed how to make the platform. Same thing has happened to our aircraft carrier. Same thing happened to our nuclear submarine. You'll be surprised, there are almost 200 medium and small scale enterprises who are involved in making components. And we are going to make large number of these submarines, so they have living for so many years. They will keep increasing their employability of more and more people. And you will require the domain specialists, not only from university level IMU, you will have to have people at the level of ITIs, those who actually work with hand. So finally they are the ones who are going to sit on, call it lathe machine or call it robotic machine. They are the guys who are actually going to be operating. So I think there is a lot to do, and I am very happy that the center has actually brought this entire thing onto the platform. And this is not the first time that you're doing, but I think this requires little more publicity. It requires little more bringing on the national network. Please try and see that you can have a full-fledged program on this by the staff of the center, or maybe you can invite some of our very distinguished speakers who have spoken on a panel discussion on Doordarshan. Have a panel discussion on some of the TV channels. Idea is that you must get to the people. People have to be made aware that maritime sector is also growing. Otherwise, it is not finding enough traction in the public. So I think all in all, I would say that it's a great thing. I think Mr. Sridharan has raised his hand. So what I'll do is I'll just stop here for a minute and take this question. Mr. Sridharan, sir, all yours.
Thank you, sir. That was an excellent presentation from Anthony Prince, sir. One point, coming up is that we don't have, the experienced manpower into the shipbuilding as such. And he rightly points it out that we need 1 or 2 years of experience in a yard, because we have the trainees, but they need some experience into the yard to bring them into the profession, to make them utilize them properly into the shipbuilding. We are looking into the Maritime Vision of 2030, and we need professionals, we need the experienced, definitely. And see, sir, I am the director of a College of Ship Technology, a college who is doing a course, a BSc Shipbuilding and Repair course under Indian Maritime University. We do this specialization course in in shipbuilding and repair only. So what we find is that in the industry or the government, if you want to create experienced hands, we definitely have to take up the trainees, and we need to give them the training, 1 or 2 years of shipyard training, whatever is there, we need to give them, so that we can develop in the coming years, we can develop enough manpower. So this is something maybe with the government support, or some kind of a stipend or kind of something, we need to develop them so that in 1 or 2 years we have sufficient manpower coming into it. Definitely the young boys in the market, they don't come into the shipbuilding industry because of the IT industry or many other industries they give more salary and better terms and conditions first, etc. The young boys, the better of them, they don't come into the shipbuilding industry. So that is a weakness we have, and we have to change it. We can change it only with the the government and the shipping industry coming forward, and recruiting people from the institute. and so that we can develop them, to become the leaders of shipbuilding industry tomorrow. So this is something we need to, even I have been discussing with the Malini Shankar, our VC also. We give a little bit more aspect into the training part of it. Okay, Cochin shipyard and some shipyards are there, but the one issue what we are saying, we found out is that they don't, they don't go for a partnership or collaboration with the private institute. They go with only the government or one or two government institutes only go. But there are very good the private institutes also who does experienced faculties and industry people who is doing this maritime training to bring up good leaders into our maritime shipbuilding. So the industry need to recognize and take them and help the other institutes and other the private participation also into the
Yeah,
shipbuilding.
Mr. Sridharan, I got your point. Because we're running out of time. Mr. Jyoti, you got some question? And Mr. Anthony, I'll come back to you. Jyoti?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for taking my question.
Yeah.
My comment, it's not a question, it's a comment actually. In the olden days, we used to have different trades in all the shipyards. And those trades were skilled trades and they were maintained and paid by the shipyard themselves. In recent times of the past, say about 30 years or so, shipyards are depending much more on contract labor and not their own paid labor. And these contract laborers, from where and with what skill they are recruited, is not known. This requires a specific amendment to the labor law so that the manufacturing trades in the shipyards, the various trades which are there in the shipyards, they are maintained within the shipyards and kept with the shipyards, and not the crucial jobs cannot be given to the contract labor. This is my point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Mr. Anthony, would you like to respond to that?
Sure, I'd love to. First, regarding Mr. Sridharan's comment, it is a very valid point. See, the majority of shipyards in India is owned by the government. And the policy is also owned by the government, made by the government. So they can make a policy that provided a graduate from a recognized organization, private or public, is seeking an apprenticeship, it should be his birthright to get an apprenticeship. As long as you have approved the institution, their syllabus, and their intake. So, for example, if your institute is taking 100 ship technologists, it is recognized by Ministry of Shipping, then getting that apprenticeship is their birthright. That means they should be absorbed by a shipyard, a government shipyard. And of course, the private shipyards too, but we hardly have very few private shipyards in India. So that problem can be easily solved because both are controlled by the government. The other way is the China model. You encourage the inland waterway shipbuilding, you encourage coastal shipbuilding and make it easy. So naturally, people from the farm, I know in Japan, farmers were shipbuilding workers, in Korea, farmers were, and in China also farmers were shipbuilding workers. So there's nothing wrong. You just train them and they're ready for the job. Okay, but they created the huge capacity shortage was overcome not only by training and education institutions, by themselves getting into the very basic shipbuilding, starting from a barge to a coastal ship. So that can train, and the big shipyards can then absorb these people, and maybe with very little training, they can be employed. That's my point. Second point to Jyoti Dasgupta's point, you see, if you look at the right of every business to run it the best way so that they are profitable is something, a basic right. So we really cannot enforce a lot of things onto a shipyard. And shipyards in Japan or Korea or China, they depend very much on subcontractors. And the only thing is that you have to define the qualification criteria of a subcontractor. That's all. So, the shipyards are only an integrator in those countries. They are not builders or manufacturers or as it is. They bring everything together and stitch them together and deliver it. So I would say that I will not quite agree with the point that you mentioned But I respect that major trades, the shipyard must have a good grip. Either they must have them by themselves or they must have by subcontractor.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. I have nothing more to add really, except to say that there are possibilities of shipyards adopting, your university or your, college, or make them aware that you have an organization like this, and it is an authorized or it's an approved UGC approved or whichever approving authority, shipping ministry approved organization. You reach out. I'll request the Honorable Vice Chancellor and yourself, Mr. Sridharan, that please reach out even to defense PSUs, because finally there are people who have to do hands-on work. For apprenticeship, you can tie up. I'm sure they will be able to, even if they take 5-10 people in particular, vertical, you will have them, specialists. After all, what? You will have a specialized guy who will talk about electricity supply in the ship supply in the ship, or somebody will talk about hydraulic pumps fitment. Somebody will talk about firefighting system. Now, the basic principle of ship, management is around the same. How it operates that is where this artificial intelligence and robotics can come into play. So I think that you have to reach out rather than just sort of producing people and leaving them in the market. My suggestion is that you try. I don't think that there will be any hindrance, or they will say that we want only from government organization. If at all it is happening, if you go to, let's say, MDL or Hindustan Shipyard Limited or somewhere, if you are having trouble, I can offer my services. I can get in touch with the CMDs and request them, because it's up to them. I don't think that we should be looking for unqualified contract labor, helping in shipbuilding in place of people who are qualified, who have been taught the shipbuilding subject. So I think that
Very true,
little
very
bit
true.
of reaching out is
Fully agree, yes.
so. Thank you very much, all our listeners, and let's give a big hand to our speaker, Mr. Anthony Prince. Thank you very much. Sneha, all yours. We are just about 3-4 minutes past.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with the valuable knowledge. Now, may I request Assistant Professor Vinod Sononi to please convey the...
Good afternoon to everyone. It is my honor to propose a formal vote of thanks. I, on behalf of CHME Society, Kanoji Angre Maritime Research Institute, take this opportunity to thank Anthony Prince sir for lecture which was full of knowledge and interesting things. It requires planning and a bird's eye for such details. I am pretty sure the precious knowledge that Anthony Prince sir gave us will definitely help us in our studies and future. The PowerPoint presentation was very, very informative. Thank you, sir, for this. Our heartful thanks are also due to our chairman of this session, Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, for taking out time from their busy schedule and enlightening us with the knowledge. Your presence and wise words helped magnify our cause in the best possible way. With this, I thank our viewers who joined us virtually. We look forward to welcome you again for our next session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. With this, we have completed our 3 sessions of the day. First session was on skilling for shipbuilding, orienting India's maritime education to meet the shipyard industry demand of 21st century, where we had as a chairman, Lieutenant General D.V. Shikarkar, and speaker was Srimati Malini Shankar. For the second session, we had historical legacy of shipbuilding in India as a compass chart the way ahead. And for that, we were accompanied by the chairman, Dr. Angana Guha Roy, and speaker was Commodore Johnson Odekal. And third session was Atmanirbhar in shipbuilding in relation to Maritime Vision 2030. The chairman was Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, and speaker was Shri Anthony Prince. Till now, we have done with our 3 sessions. Now, I declare a lunch break for 45 minutes, and we'll again meet at 2 p.m.